My name is Renee Holloway, and I'm 34 years old. Last Thursday evening, I was sitting on the floor of my living room helping my daughter Lily build a solar system out of styrofoam balls and acrylic paint. Jupiter was still wet. My son, Owen, 7 years old, was lying on his stomach 3 feet away, reading a Captain Underpants book with a flashlight even though every lamp in the room was on. My kids were right there. Breathing, laughing, alive, safe, mine. And at that exact moment, my mother was in my kitchen, 15 steps away, typing a Facebook post that said I had abandoned them. She used that word. Abandoned. She posted it to her 1,400 friends, most of whom go to her church, live in our town, or sit on the PTA board at my children's school. She tagged my ex-husband. She tagged my sister. She wrote, and I have the screenshot burned into my memory the way you remember where you were when the ground opened beneath you, please pray for my grandchildren. Their mother has chosen her career over them and I am the only one holding this family together. I don't know how much longer I can do this alone. Lily's Jupiter was still wet when I found the post. Owen was on chapter 4. I'd been abandoned by exactly no one, and my children had been abandoned by exactly no one, but by morning, 212 people believed we had. 47 of them commented. 9 of them called my ex-husband to ask if he needed help. And my mother, standing in my kitchen, sipping the coffee I brewed, using the Wi-Fi I pay for, in the house I own, told her version of my life to every person she'd ever met. She didn't do it because it was true. She did it because I told her no. One word. One syllable. And she burned my reputation to the ground while my kids did homework in the next room. Before I tell you what happened when I found that post, and what I did in the 11 days that followed, I want you to know something. I didn't scream. I didn't throw her phone. I didn't even raise my voice. Not yet. But by the time this story ends, my mother would be sitting in a lawyer's office watching her own words played back to her on a screen, and the only person she'd have to blame is the woman she underestimated for 34 years. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, I love hearing from you. Now let me take you back, because this didn't start with a Facebook post. It started the way it always does in my family. With my mother deciding that my life belonged to her. Westbrook, Virginia is small in the way that flatters itself. 22,000 people, a downtown with a bookstore and a bakery, school fundraisers where everybody knows which mother brought the store-bought cookies and which one stayed up until midnight making lemon bars from scratch. My mother, Gloria Tate Holloway, 61 years old, is the lemon bar mother. She is also the woman who organizes the spring gala at Grace Hill Methodist, chairs the neighborhood beautification committee, runs the holiday coat drive, and has never once in her life let a room forget she was in it. If Westbrook had a mayor of appearances, Gloria would hold the seat uncontested. My father, Hank, 63, spent 35 years managing the floor at a furniture warehouse before his back gave out. He retired early, collects model trains, and speaks in a voice so quiet you have to lean in to hear him, which means most people don't bother. Hank is not a bad man. He is a man who made a decision sometime around 1994 that agreeing with Gloria was easier than disagreeing, and he has not revisited that decision since. Then there's my sister, Megan. 29. The favorite. I say that without bitterness because bitterness implies surprise, and I stopped being surprised by Megan's position in our family around the time I was 12 years old. Megan is 5 years younger than me, lives 14 minutes from my parents, works part-time at a real estate office, and calls our mother every single day. Not because she wants to. Because Gloria trained her to. The difference between me and Megan is simple. Megan learned to perform. I learned to leave. I got out of Westbrook the day after high school graduation, went to Virginia Commonwealth on a partial scholarship, worked 2 jobs, graduated with a degree in communications, and spent the next decade building a career in hospital administration. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that makes people gasp at dinner parties. I manage operations for a regional medical center 40 minutes from Westbrook, salary $94,000, benefits, a retirement account I started funding at 26. I bought my house at 31, a 3-bedroom colonial on a half-acre with a porch swing I installed myself. I raised 2 children, Lily, 9, and Owen, 7, after a divorce from a man named Carter Holloway, who was better at being a weekend dad than a daily one, and who pays his child support on the first of every month without complaint. My life is ordinary. My life is stable. My life is mine. And that is the part my mother cannot forgive. Gloria doesn't hate me. I want to be clear about that because people hear these stories and assume the mother is a monster. Gloria is not a monster. She is a woman who built her entire identity on being needed, and I committed the unforgivable sin of not needing her. When Megan's car broke down, Gloria paid the mechanic and told the story for 6 weeks. When Megan's boyfriend left, Gloria moved her into the guest room and hosted a prayer circle. When Megan needed help with rent, Gloria wrote the check and framed the gratitude like a portrait on the mantle. Gloria thrives on crisis because crisis requires a savior, and Gloria has always cast herself as the savior of this family. I don't have crises. I have systems. I meal prep on Sundays. I keep a color-coded calendar on the refrigerator. I schedule parent-teacher conferences 2 weeks in advance, and I have never, not once, called my mother at midnight asking for help. And every time she looks at my life and finds nothing broken, something in her clenches. Because if I don't need saving, she doesn't have a role. So she builds one. The first time I noticed the pattern, Lily was 3. I'd just gone back to work full-time after the divorce. Gloria offered to watch the kids 2 days a week while I transitioned to my new schedule. I was grateful. Genuinely, deeply grateful. She showed up on time, made the kids lunches, read to Owen during his nap. For 3 months, it was the closest my mother and I had been in years. Then I hired a nanny. A 24-year-old named Priya, certified in early childhood education, with references from 2 families I knew personally. She cost $800 a month, and she was worth every cent. When I told Gloria, her face didn't change. Not right away. She nodded, said that's nice, and asked if I wanted her to stay on 1 day a week just in case. I said I'd let her know. That night, she called my father and told him I was replacing her with a stranger. He called me the next morning. Your mother is hurt, Renee. She feels like you're pushing her away. Dad, I hired childcare. That's not pushing anyone away. You know how she is. She just wants to feel useful. She is useful. She's their grandmother. That's not enough for her. Nothing I said mattered. Within a week, Gloria had told 3 women at church that I'd chosen a stranger over family. By the following Sunday, a woman I barely knew stopped me in the parking lot and said she hoped everything was all right at home. She'd heard I was struggling. Struggling. I was making $86,000 a year, raising 2 kids on my own, and sleeping 6 hours a night. But in my mother's version, I was struggling. And the only thing standing between my children and disaster was Gloria Tate Holloway. That was 3 years ago. The pattern didn't stop. It evolved. It grew arms. Every time I made a decision about my own life, my mother reframed it as evidence that I was falling apart. When I got promoted to director of operations, she told Megan I was working too much and the kids were suffering. When I started dating again, briefly, a man named David who taught history at the community college, she told my aunt that I was prioritizing men over my children. When I enrolled Lily in a weekend art program because Lily loved painting, Gloria called it sad that my daughter needed outside activities to fill the void her mother left. Every choice I made was filtered through Gloria's lens and came out distorted. Independent became neglectful. Competent became cold. Private became secretive. She didn't need facts. She had a narrative, and the narrative was simple. Renee can't do this alone, but she's too proud to ask for help, so I have to step in. She told that story so many times, to so many people, that it became the wallpaper of my reputation in Westbrook. And the worst part is, I let her. Because fighting Gloria was exhausting, and I had 2 kids, a full-time job, and exactly enough energy to keep my own life running without spending what was left arguing with a woman who would never admit she was wrong. So I did what I always did. I stayed quiet. I let the narrative stand. I told myself that the people who mattered knew the truth and the rest didn't matter. I was wrong. Because silence doesn't correct a lie. It just gives the lie room to grow. And Gloria's lies had been growing for 3 years, reaching into every corner of my life in Westbrook, threading through every church pew and PTA meeting and neighborhood barbecue until the story she told wasn't just her version anymore. It was the town's. The Facebook post wasn't the beginning. It was the crescendo of a symphony she'd been conducting since the day I stopped needing her. And the thing that set it off was so small, so ordinary, so completely reasonable that it took me days to even connect the two. I said no. That's it. That's the whole inciting incident. Gloria called me on a Tuesday, 3 weeks before the post, and asked if the kids could sleep over at her house on Friday. I checked the calendar. Lily had a swim meet Saturday morning at 8. Owen had a birthday party at 10. Both required early wake-ups, packed bags, specific logistics. I said, not this weekend, Mom. The kids have a full Saturday. Maybe next Friday. She paused. The kind of pause Gloria uses the way other people use a raised eyebrow. Fine. I just thought the children might enjoy spending time with their grandmother. They see you every Sunday at dinner, Mom. They see me when you allow it. I didn't take the bait. I said I'd call her later. She said don't bother and hung up. I didn't think about it again. I had a budget meeting at 7 the next morning and Lily's swim bag needed a new pair of goggles. Tuesday became Wednesday. Wednesday became Thursday. Life moved forward in the ordinary way it does when you don't realize someone is loading a weapon in the next room. The post went live on Thursday at 7:43 p.m. I know the exact time because Facebook timestamps everything, and because 7:43 p.m. is the minute my mother chose to tell 1,400 people that I had abandoned my children. I didn't see it first. Priya saw it. She texted me at 8:15, one word. Renee. Then a screenshot. I was sitting on the living room floor. Lily was painting Neptune. Owen had moved on to chapter 5. My phone buzzed and I glanced at the screen expecting a grocery list reminder or a text from Dana at work. Instead, I saw my mother's profile picture, the one where she's smiling in front of the church Christmas tree, above a paragraph that detonated my entire life in Westbrook. Please pray for my grandchildren. Their mother has chosen her career over them and I am the only one holding this family together. I don't know how much longer I can do this alone. These precious babies deserve stability and love. It breaks my heart to watch them suffer because their mother is too proud to ask for help. I am asking on their behalf. Pray for Lily and Owen. They need it now more than ever. She'd tagged Carter. She'd tagged Megan. She'd tagged the Grace Hill Methodist Church page. She'd added a photo, one I'd never seen before, of Lily and Owen at Gloria's house looking tired after a long Sunday. No context. Just 2 exhausted kids and a caption designed to make every person who read it believe my children were neglected. I read it 3 times. My hands didn't shake. My vision didn't blur. I felt something cold and precise move through me, the way you feel a lock turn when you've finally found the right key. I looked up from my phone. Lily was holding up Neptune, streaked with blue and silver, grinning. How's this one, Mommy? It's perfect, baby. I set the phone face down on the carpet. I walked into my kitchen. My mother was standing at the counter, rinsing a coffee mug she'd used an hour ago, humming something from the church hymnal. She was still in my house. She'd been here since 4 o'clock, when she'd stopped by unannounced with a casserole I didn't ask for and a comment about how tired the kids looked. She'd sat on my couch. She'd eaten my food. She'd played a card game with Owen while I helped Lily with homework. And at 7:43, she'd walked into my kitchen, opened her phone, and told the world I'd abandoned my children while those children sat 15 feet away painting planets. Mom. She turned, mug still in hand, eyebrows lifted in that pleasant, expectant expression she wore like a mask. Yes, honey? I held up my phone. The screen faced her. She looked at it. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She looked at the post the way someone looks at a grocery receipt, something she'd already processed and filed. Someone needed to say it, Renee. Say what? That I abandoned my kids? The kids who are in the living room right now. The kids you just played cards with? She set the mug down carefully on the counter. The click of ceramic on granite was the loudest sound in the room. Those children need more than what you're giving them. I give them everything. You give them a schedule. They need a mother. I am their mother. You're a woman who works 50 hours a week and thinks a nanny and a color-coded calendar make up for being present. She said it calmly. Without raising her voice. Without breaking eye contact. The way someone delivers a line they've rehearsed in front of a mirror. This wasn't spontaneous. This was scripted. She'd planned the post. She'd planned the visit. She'd sat in my house for 3 hours waiting for the right moment to press publish, and she'd done it while my children were close enough to hear her humming. I stared at her. Not with anger. With clarity. The kind of clarity that only comes when someone shows you exactly who they are after years of letting you guess. Take it down. Excuse me? Take the post down, Mom. Right now. I will not. My children need you? Those children need an advocate. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't step closer. I just held my phone at my side and said the truest thing I'd ever said to Gloria Tate Holloway. You didn't post that for them. You posted it because I said no to a sleepover and you needed to punish me. She picked up her purse from the kitchen chair. Adjusted the strap on her shoulder. Smoothed her blouse. When you're ready to apologize, she said, you know where I am. She walked past me, through the living room, past Lily and Owen and their painted planets, and out my front door without saying goodbye to either of them. The woman who'd just told 1,400 people she was the only one holding this family together didn't stop to hug her grandchildren on the way out. I stood in my kitchen and listened to her car start in the driveway. The engine turned over. The headlights swept across the living room wall. And then she was gone, and I was standing alone in the house I bought with the career she just publicly condemned, looking at a phone full of notifications from people who believed her. Mommy? Lily's voice from the living room. Is Grandma okay? She left without saying bye. She's fine, sweetheart. She just had to go. I walked back into the living room. Sat down on the floor. Picked up a styrofoam ball and a brush. What planet is this one? That's Mars, Mommy. Then let's make it red. I painted Mars with my daughter while my phone buzzed 14 times in my pocket. Each buzz was a comment. Each comment was a stranger, or worse, someone I knew, believing that I had failed my children. And my mother was driving home, windows up, hymn still on her lips, certain she had won. She hadn't. She just didn't know it yet. By the time Lily and Owen were asleep, the post had 63 comments and 104 reactions. I sat on my bed with the door closed and read every single one. Praying for those babies. So sad. Gloria, you are such a strong woman. Some mothers just aren't built for it. God bless you for stepping up. A woman named Donna, who I recognized from the school fundraiser committee, wrote, I always thought something was off. Those kids always look so tired at pickup. My children look tired at pickup because they have a full day of school, activities, and homework, and they're 7 and 9 years old. Every child on earth looks tired at pickup. But in the context of Gloria's post, tired became evidence. Carter had been tagged. He hadn't commented, but he'd liked the post. liked it. The man who sees his children every other weekend, who has never once packed a school lunch or driven to a swim meet, who forgot Lily's birthday last year and sent a gift card 3 days late, liked a post that called me an absent mother. I closed Facebook. Opened my contacts. Called Priya. She answered on the first ring. Did you see the comments? I saw them. How are you? I'm calm. And that's what scares me. We talked for 20 minutes. Priya, who had been in my home 3 days a week for 2 years, who knew my children's routines better than anyone outside of me, who had watched me pack lunches at 6 in the morning and read bedtime stories at 8 every single night, said the thing I needed to hear. Renee, you're the best mother I've ever worked for. And I've worked for 11 families. I know. But 200 people don't. Not yet. I hung up and opened my laptop. I didn't write a response. I didn't draft a rebuttal. I opened a folder I'd kept on my desktop for 3 years, labeled Household Records, and I started organizing. Every screenshot of Gloria's previous comments about my parenting. Every text where she'd called me selfish, cold, or too career-focused. Every email she'd sent to Megan that Megan had forwarded to me, sometimes accidentally, sometimes not, in which Gloria described my home as chaotic and my children as unsupervised. I had 47 screenshots. I had 12 forwarded emails. I had the post itself, which I screenshotted from 3 angles, including the comments, the reactions, and the timestamp that proved she'd published it from inside my home while my children were awake in the next room. I saved everything to a flash drive. Then I saved a second copy to my cloud. Then I called the one person I trusted more than anyone in Westbrook who wasn't on my mother's payroll or her prayer chain. My neighbor Adrian, 41, family law paralegal, mother of 3, and the only woman on my street who had never once repeated a word of Gloria's gossip. Adrian picked up the phone and said 4 words that told me she already knew. I saw the post. Can you come over tomorrow morning? I'll bring coffee. And just like that, for the first time in 34 years, I stopped being quiet. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just done. I lay in bed that night listening to the house settle around me. Owen's nightlight glowed blue under his door. Lily's breathing was steady through the monitor I still kept on even though she said she was too old for it. My children were sleeping. Safe. Federal loved. Present. And somewhere across town, my mother was sleeping too, satisfied that she'd told the world a story about me that would take weeks to undo. She didn't know about the folder. She didn't know about Adrian. She didn't know that the woman she'd just publicly called an absent mother had spent 3 years quietly collecting every lie Gloria had ever told, not because I planned this, but because some part of me always knew this day would come. I just didn't know it would come while Jupiter was still wet. Adrian arrived at 7:15 the next morning with 2 coffees and a legal pad already half filled with notes. She sat at my kitchen table, read every screenshot, every forwarded email, every comment on the post, and when she was done, she set her pen down and looked at me with the steady, unblinking gaze of a woman who'd spent 15 years watching families tear themselves apart in courtrooms. This isn't just gossip, Renee. This is defamation. She tapped the screenshot of the post. She publicly accused you of abandoning your children. She tagged your ex-husband. She tagged a church page with over 2,000 followers. And she did it from inside your home while your kids were present. I nodded. I know. Do you know what Carter could do with this? My stomach tightened. He liked the post, Adrian. I saw. She leaned forward. If Carter decides to use this in a custody modification, Gloria just handed him a weapon. A public post from the children's own grandmother saying the mother has abandoned them. Any family court judge would look at that. Carter won't. He doesn't want more custody. He can barely handle every other weekend. Maybe not. But his mother might. And his lawyer definitely would. I hadn't thought about that. I'd been so focused on the humiliation, the betrayal, The sheer audacity of Gloria typing those words while my children painted planets in the next room, that I hadn't considered the legal exposure. My mother hadn't just attacked my reputation. She'd created a document. A public, time-stamped, screenshotable document that could be used against me in court by anyone who wanted to take my children. The realization hit me like cold water. This wasn't just about Gloria's ego. This was dangerous. What do I do? Adrienne pulled out a clean sheet from her legal pad. First, you document everything. Which you've already done, and honestly, Renee, the fact that you've been saving these for 3 years tells me you knew this was coming. I did. Second, you send a formal cease and desist. I'll draft it. It puts her on legal notice that her public statements are defamatory and that further posts will result in action. And third? Third, you decide what you want. Not what you want to say to her. What you want the outcome to be. Because right now, you have leverage she doesn't know about, and leverage only works if you use it at the right moment. I looked at the folder on my laptop screen. 47 screenshots. 12 emails. One post seen by over 200 people. What I wanted was simple. I wanted my mother to stop. Not to apologize, not to grovel, not to perform contrition in front of her church friends the way she performed everything else. I just wanted her to stop telling people I was a bad mother. But I also knew Gloria. Stopping wasn't in her vocabulary. She didn't retreat. She escalated. And the cease and desist, as necessary as it was, would feel to her like a declaration of war. Which meant I needed to be ready for the war she'd start, and I needed the battlefield to be mine, not hers. Over the next 6 days, Gloria did exactly what I expected. She doubled down. She didn't take the post down. She pinned it. She added a comment beneath it on Saturday morning that read, "Thank you all for the prayers. The children are with me this weekend and they are safe and happy." The children were not with her. The children were at home with me. Owen had a soccer game at 9. Lily had art class at 11. I drove them to both, packed snacks, sat in the bleachers, talked to other parents, and lived my ordinary, stable, unglamorous life while my mother told the internet my kids were in her care. I screenshotted the comment. Added it to the folder. Megan called me on Sunday. Her voice had the thin, stretched quality of someone who'd been briefed by Gloria and was calling out of obligation rather than concern. "Mom's really upset, Renee. She feels like you're shutting her out." She posted that I abandoned my children, Megan. While she was sitting in my kitchen. While Lily and Owen were in the next room. She's just worried about the kids. The kids are fine. The kids have always been fine. She didn't ask how the kids were. She didn't ask how I was. She asked if I would call Gloria and make peace. The script was so familiar I could have recited it in my sleep. Gloria creates the crisis. Gloria assigns the narrative. Megan delivers the message. Hank stays silent. And I'm expected to absorb it all and call to apologize for making Gloria feel bad about the terrible thing Gloria did. Not this time. "Megan, did you read the post?" "Of course I read it." "And did any part of you think, maybe Mom shouldn't have done that?" She paused. Too long. The pause told me everything. She had thought it. She'd read that post and felt the wrongness of it, the way you feel a bone out of place before the pain arrives. But she'd pushed it down. Because questioning Gloria was something the Tate women didn't do. It was easier to call me. It was always easier to call me. "I have to go," I said. We hung up. I didn't call Gloria. I didn't call Hank. I sat at my kitchen table and finalized the guest list for what was coming. Not a party. Something better. Something Gloria would never see coming because she'd spent 34 years believing I was the daughter who took it quietly. The Grace Hill Methodist Women's Fellowship Luncheon happens every October. It's the social event of Gloria's year. 80 women, a catered lunch, a guest speaker, and a segment where the chairwoman, Gloria, for 11 consecutive years, gives a speech about service, family, and the strength of community. She rehearses that speech for weeks. She prints it on cardstock. She wears the same pearl necklace my grandmother gave her. This year's luncheon was scheduled for October 12, 9 days after the post. Gloria had no idea that Adrian had hand-delivered the cease and desist to her mailbox on Monday. She wouldn't open it until Tuesday because Gloria never checked her mail on Mondays. She was too busy planning. She also had no idea that the luncheon coordinator, a woman named Patrice Owens, was Adrian's sister-in-law. And she had no idea that I'd been invited to attend. Not as a guest. As a speaker. Patrice had called me on Wednesday, 2 days after I'd told Adrian everything. She hadn't asked me to come. She'd asked me if I wanted to. There's a difference. There's a 5-minute open slot after the main speaker, she said. It's usually a community spotlight. Someone shares a personal story about resilience. I thought of you. What did Adrian tell you? Enough. And I've seen the post, Renee. Half the women at that luncheon saw it. Some of them commented. Some of them believed it. Don't you think they deserve to hear from you? I sat with that for a long time. Gloria had spent years building a narrative about me in that room, in that church, among those women. She'd done it the way she did everything. Slowly, carefully, one casserole at a time. And now she was about to stand in front of 80 of those women and give a speech about family while the post accusing me of abandoning mine was still pinned to her Facebook page. I told Patrice yes. Then I opened the folder on my laptop and began choosing what to bring. October 12th. I arrived at Grace Hill Methodist at 11:45, 15 minutes before the luncheon began. I wore a navy blouse, gray slacks, and the small gold earrings Lily had picked out for my birthday last year because she said they made me look like a boss lady. I carried a tote bag with my laptop inside, the folder saved to the desktop, and a single printed page I'd written the night before. I talked to 3 women who came to my table with questions in their eyes and kindness in their voices. One of them, Mrs. Alderman, who had taught my 4th grade Sunday school class, put her hand on mine and said, I commented on that post, Renee. I said I'd pray for your children. I'm sorry. I should have called you first. Thank you. That means more than you know. Gloria did not eat. She sat at her table with her cardstock speech still pressed against the tablecloth, her pearl necklace catching the overhead light, her face a mask of composure so thin I could see the cracks from across the room. She did not speak to anyone. She did not stand to refill her plate or pour her coffee. She sat and she absorbed what had just happened, and for the first time in 11 years as chairwoman of this event, nobody came to her table to tell her what a beautiful speech she'd given. I left at 1:30. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed. Hank. His voice was quiet. Quieter than usual. Your mother is in the car. She's not speaking. I stood by my driver's side door. The October air was cool and sharp. I know, Dad. She's very upset. I imagine she is. Renee, did you have to do it like that? In front of everyone? She posted it in front of everyone, Dad. 1,400 people saw that post. I spoke to 80. He went silent. I could hear Gloria breathing in the background. Shallow. Controlled. The breathing of a woman who was listening to every word and waiting for her husband to fix it. Dad, I'm not going to apologize for telling the truth. I never told you to. No, you just never told her to stop. The line went quiet for a long time. Then Hank said something so soft I almost missed it. You're right. He hung up. I got in my car. Sat in the parking lot for 5 minutes. My hands were steady. My heartbeat was normal. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean. Like I'd been carrying a stone in my chest for 3 years and someone had finally reached in and pulled it out. By evening, the post was gone. Gloria had deleted it. Not taken it down with a correction. Not added a clarification. Deleted it entirely, as if it had never existed. But the internet remembers what people try to erase, and I had screenshots of everything, including the 47 comments, the 104 reactions, Carter's like, and the pinned comment where Gloria claimed my children were with her on a weekend they were home with me. Adrian texted at 9. Post is down. Did she get the cease and desist? She got it. Opened it this morning according to Patrice. She hasn't responded. She won't respond to the letter, Renee. She'll respond to what happened today. And she'll respond the way she always does. By mobilizing. I set my phone down. Looked at my children's bedroom doors, both closed, both dark, both sheltering kids who had no idea their grandmother had tried to rewrite their story and their mother had just rewritten it back. Gloria's mobilization began within 24 hours. She called Margaret first. My aunt, who had always been Gloria's most reliable amplifier, the woman who could turn a single phone call into a 5-branch family alert system. But something had shifted. Margaret called me on Sunday. Her voice was different. Not the usual urgent relay of Gloria's emotional state. Something flatter. More uncertain. Your mother says you humiliated her at the luncheon. I told the truth at the luncheon. Those aren't the same thing to her. They never have been. Margaret paused. I saw the post, Renee. Before she took it down. Why didn't you call me? I stopped calling people about Gloria's behavior 3 years ago, Margaret. Nobody listened. She was quiet for a long time. I could hear her television in the background, some daytime talk show. The normal sounds of a normal afternoon in a family that had never been normal. Fair enough, she said finally. I'm not going to carry her messages anymore. I didn't ask for that. I know. That's why I'm offering it. On Tuesday, the school principal's office called. Not about Lily. Not about Owen. About me. Mrs. Holloway, we received a call from a Gloria Tate Holloway expressing concern about your children's welfare. She asked us to monitor their attendance and behavior for signs of neglect. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. What did you tell her? We told her that Lily and Owen have perfect attendance, excellent grades, and no behavioral concerns. We also told her that we are not in the business of surveilling families based on a grandparent's phone call. And then, in a voice that told me this woman had dealt with Gloria's type before, she added, Mrs. Holloway, your children are thriving. Whatever is happening in your family, it's not happening in this building. I thanked her. Hung up. Added the call to my log. Date, time, content, the principal's name. Gloria had called my children's school. She had asked them to watch for neglect. She had taken her campaign from Facebook to the institution responsible for my children's daily safety, and she had done it without a single piece of evidence because she didn't need evidence. She had a story. And in Gloria's world, the story had always been enough. But the story was falling apart. The women at the luncheon were talking. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in the way small towns process revelations, over coffee, at the grocery store, in parking lots after Sunday service. The version of Renee Holloway that Gloria had distributed for years was being held up against the version they'd seen at that podium, and the two didn't match. And when a story stops matching, people stop believing the storyteller. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Wednesday night, Carter called. His voice had the careful, measured tone of a man who had recently spoken to a lawyer. Renee, I need to talk to you about that post. The post you liked? He cleared his throat. My attorney said I should not have engaged with it publicly. Your attorney? He's concerned it could complicate things. Complicate what? You have every other weekend and you pay support on time. What's complicated? He paused. My mom saw the luncheon video. Someone recorded you at the podium and it's on the Grace Hill Facebook page. She thinks Gloria had a point. She thinks I should petition for more custody. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Not because I was afraid of losing. My custody agreement was airtight, my record was clean, my children were healthy and happy and present. But because this was exactly what Adrian had warned me about. Gloria's post hadn't just been a tantrum. It was a lit match tossed into dry grass. And now Carter's mother, a woman who sent my children gift cards she bought at the gas station and hadn't attended a single school event in 3 years, was using my mother's lies to suggest I was unfit. Carter, I said slowly, do you believe I abandoned our children? No. Then say that out loud. Not a speech. A statement. 12 sentences. Adrian had reviewed every word. The fellowship hall was set with round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces of sunflowers in mason jars, and printed programs with Gloria's name on the front. Chairwoman Gloria Tate Holloway. Service, faith, family. I took my seat at a table near the back. Patrice had placed me there deliberately. Close enough to see the podium. Far enough that Gloria wouldn't notice me until it was time. The room filled. Women I'd known my whole life. Women who'd watched me grow up, who'd taught my Sunday school class, who'd sat across from my mother at potlucks and book clubs and fundraisers for 2 decades. Some of them had commented on the post. Some of them had shared it. Some of them had looked at me in the school parking lot last week with a pity that made my skin burn because the pity was based on a lie. Gloria arrived at noon exactly. She walked in wearing her pearl necklace and a cream-colored blazer, carrying the speech on cardstock the way she always did, pressed against her chest like a diploma. She greeted women at every table. She hugged. She laughed. She touched shoulders and squeezed hands and said, I'm so glad you're here, with the warmth of a woman who believed every room she entered was better for her presence. She did not see me. She made her way to the podium. The room settled. Patrice introduced her with the usual warmth. And then Gloria began. I want to talk about what it means to show up for your family, she said. Her voice was steady, practiced, pitched to carry across a room of 80 women who had heard this tone 100 times before. Being a mother, being a grandmother, is the greatest privilege of my life. My grandchildren are my world. I sat at my table and felt the air in my lungs go still. She was doing it. She was standing in front of 80 women, 9 days after posting that I'd abandoned my children, and she was building herself a pedestal out of words like sacrifice and devotion and family and love. I watched the women around me nod. I watched them smile. They believed her because they had always believed her, because Gloria had spent 30 years making herself the protagonist of every story she told, and nobody had ever stood up and said, that's not what happened. Sometimes the hardest thing a mother can do, Gloria continued, is step in when her own child can't. My throat tightened. Not from pain. From recognition. She was talking about me. She was talking about the post. She was framing herself, right now, in front of this room, as the selfless grandmother who had no choice but to go public because her daughter had failed. And she was doing it without using my name, which was the most Gloria move of all, because it let every woman in that room fill in the blank with whatever version of me Gloria had already given them. She finished. The room applauded. She smiled. She held the podium with both hands and looked out at the room the way a conductor looks at an orchestra after the final note. Then Patrice stood up. She walked to the microphone. She said the words Gloria didn't expect. Before we move to lunch, we have a community spotlight this year. A member of our congregation who'd like to share a brief personal reflection. Please welcome Renee Holloway. The applause was polite. Thin. The kind you give a name you recognize but don't expect. I stood up. Picked up my tote bag. Walked to the podium. I passed Gloria's table on the way. She was frozen. Her hand was on her water glass. Her mouth was slightly open. Her eyes followed me the way you watch something falling from a shelf, too slow to catch, too fast to look away. I reached the podium. Set my paper down. Looked out at the room. 80 women. Some I loved. Some I barely knew. All of them had seen my mother's post. All of them had a version of me in their heads that was written by someone else. I took a breath. Thank you, Patrice. I'll be brief. I looked at the room. Not at Gloria. At them. 9 days ago, my mother published a post on Facebook that said I had abandoned my children. As of this morning, that post has been seen by over 400 people. 47 of them commented. Several of you are in this room. I paused. Let the silence do its work. I could feel Gloria's stare on the side of my face like heat from an open oven. I could hear the room shift, chairs creaking, breath held, the particular quality of attention that happens when people realize they are no longer at a luncheon but inside a story they can't leave. What the post didn't mention, I continued, is that my mother wrote it while sitting in my kitchen. In my house. 15 feet from my children. Lily was painting a solar system for her science project. Owen was reading on the floor. They were not abandoned. They were doing homework. I unfolded a single printed sheet. This is a screenshot of the post with the timestamp. 7:43 p.m. This is a photo Lily texted to her dad that same night at 7:51, 8 minutes later, showing her finished solar system in our living room. Same living room. Same night. Same house my mother was sitting in when she told all of you I had left my children. I set the paper on the podium. I looked at Gloria. She was white. Not pale. White. The color people turn when the thing they've been building meets the thing they've been hiding. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I am not a perfect mother. No one is. But I have never, not once, abandoned my children. I work 50 hours a week to give them a stable home. I pack their lunches. I drive them to every practice, every lesson, every swim meet. I read to them at night. I paint planets with them on the living room floor. And I do it alone. Not because their grandmother isn't welcome. Because their grandmother decided that if she couldn't control my life, she would destroy my reputation instead. The room was silent. Not a fork moved. Not a phone buzzed. Not a single woman reached for her water glass. I looked back at the room. I'm not here to ask you to take sides. I'm here to ask you to consider the source. And to tell you that the next time you see a post about someone's family, maybe call the person it's about before you comment. I picked up my paper. Folded it. Stepped back from the podium. Thank you for listening. I walked back to my seat. My heels on the fellowship hall floor were the only sound in the room. I sat down. I didn't look at Gloria. I didn't need to. Patrice stood and said, "Thank you, Renee," in a voice that carried more weight than the 2 words deserved. Then she invited everyone to lunch. Nobody moved for 3 full seconds. Then chairs scraped. Plates clinked. The room exhaled. But the air had changed. I could feel it. The version of me that Gloria had built over 30 years, the struggling mother, the absent daughter, the woman who was too proud to ask for help, had cracked. And through the crack, the real Renee Holloway was visible for the first time. I ate lunch. To your mother. To your lawyer. To anyone who asks. Say what you know is true, or don't call me again. He was quiet. Then, quietly, I'll handle it. We hung up. I sat at my kitchen table and opened the folder. 47 screenshots. 12 emails. The deleted post. The school call. The cease and desist. And now Carter's admission, on a recorded line, because Adrian had told me to start recording every call, that he did not believe the accusation. I saved the recording. Named the file Carter, October 15th. And I realized something that changed the shape of everything that followed. I didn't need to fight Gloria. I just needed to keep telling the truth. Because the truth has a quality that Gloria's stories never had. It doesn't require maintenance. November came in quiet, the way things do after a storm passes and the ground is still deciding what to grow. Gloria resigned from the Women's Fellowship chairmanship on a Tuesday. She told Patrice it was for health reasons. Patrice didn't argue. Nobody did. The luncheon video had been viewed over 600 times on the Grace Hill Facebook page before someone in the church office quietly removed it, but by then it didn't matter. The women who needed to see it had seen it, and the women who hadn't heard about it from the women who had. Gloria's social circle didn't collapse. It contracted. The invitations to lead, to speak, to organize, the roles that had defined her for a decade, stopped arriving. Not with cruelty. With silence. The kind of silence that happens when a town collectively decides to remember something uncomfortable and doesn't know how to say it out loud. She still went to church. She still brought casseroles. But she sat in the fourth row now instead of the second, and when the service ended, the conversations she walked into were shorter. Polite, warm enough, but shorter. For a woman who had built her identity on being at the center of every room, shorter was a sentence. Carter's mother dropped the custody talk within a week. Carter called to tell me himself, sounding relieved in a way that confirmed what I'd always suspected. He hadn't wanted the fight. She had. He told me he'd deleted his like on the post before Gloria took it down. I didn't tell him I'd already screenshotted it. Some evidence is better kept than discussed. Hank started calling me on Wednesday evenings. Short calls, 10 minutes. He told me about his model trains, about a documentary on covered bridges he'd watched twice, about the fig tree in the backyard that had finally produced fruit after 3 years. He didn't mention Gloria. I didn't ask. We just talked, the way a father and daughter talk when they're learning how to do it without a script written by someone else. One Wednesday, he said something that made me set down my coffee. I told your mother she needs to talk to someone. A professional. She laughed at me. But I said it. That's new, Dad. I know. He paused. You made me brave enough to say it, Renee. I didn't correct him. I didn't say I shouldn't have had to. I just let him have the moment because it was the first time in 35 years that Hank Holloway had done something difficult without being told to, and even a small revolution deserves to be acknowledged. Megan called me in late November. She didn't open with Gloria's feelings or a request to make peace. She opened with a question. Were there other posts? I sat on my porch swing, watching Lily and Owen rake leaves into a pile they had no intention of bagging. What do you mean? Before this one. Were there others? Things she said about you online, to people at church, to her friends? I could have listed every one. 47 screenshots. 12 emails. Years of quiet, steady erosion dressed up as concern. But Megan wasn't ready for the folder. She was ready for one truth at a time, and the question itself was enough. Yes, I said. There were others. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I think she does it to me too. Just differently. I know. I've been watching. We didn't solve anything on that call. We didn't plan a sisterly reunion or promise to hold each other accountable. But we stayed on the line for 40 minutes, and for the first time since we were children, the conversation wasn't about Gloria. It was about us. And that was more than I'd had in 20 years. Gloria called me in December. Her voice was stripped of its usual architecture. No warmth performed for an audience. No careful phrasing designed to steer me toward an apology. Just a woman's voice, tired and bare, standing in the ruins of a narrative that no longer held. I went too far, she said. I waited. The post. The school. All of it. I waited longer. I don't know how to be your mother without being in charge of everything. That's the first honest thing you've said to me in years. She made a sound. Not a laugh, not a cry. Something between the two, the noise a person makes when a wall they've been leaning on finally gives and they don't know if they're falling or being freed. I'm not asking you to stop being my mother, I said. I'm asking you to stop rewriting my life to make yourself the hero of it. I can't promise I'll be good at that. I know. Then why are you giving me the chance? Because Lily asked me last week why Grandma doesn't come over anymore. And I didn't have an answer that didn't break my heart. She cried. Real crying. The kind that comes without sound, just breath and the weight of years pressing down on a woman who was only now realizing what her control had cost her. I'm not ready to forgive you, Mom. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. But I'm ready to leave the door open if you're willing to walk through it like a guest and not the owner. She said okay. She said it twice. And for the first time I believed her. Not because the word was enough. But because it was small, and Gloria had never chosen small before. It's January now. The air outside my window is sharp and gray, the kind of Virginia cold that makes your lungs ache when you breathe. Lily's solar system hangs from her bedroom ceiling on fishing line. Jupiter is slightly lopsided. Neptune is too blue. Owen says the scale is wrong because Saturn should be bigger. They argue about it every morning before school. My mother came for dinner last Sunday. She brought a casserole. She sat at the table I set. She did not rearrange the chairs. She did not correct the napkins. She complimented Lily's painting on the refrigerator door and asked Owen about his book, and when she left, she hugged both of them at the door and said I love you in a voice that didn't sound like it was auditioning for an audience. It was one dinner. It doesn't erase 3 years. It doesn't erase the post or the school call or the 47 comments from strangers who believed I'd abandoned my own children. But it was one dinner where my mother sat in my house and let it be mine. And that's a start. I don't know what happens next. I know that trust rebuilds the way bones heal, slowly, painfully, and only if you stop breaking them. I know my mother may slip. I know the next time I say no, something in her might reach for her phone. But I also know that my folder still exists, that Adrian is still next door, and that I am no longer the woman who stays quiet while someone else tells her story. My name is Renee Holloway. I'm 34 years old. I work 50 hours a week. I raise 2 children who are happy and healthy and present. I paint planets on the living room floor. And the next time someone posts something about my family that isn't true, they'll remember what happened the last time, and they'll think twice. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.